Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mostafa Khalil. I'm a senior staff engineer with VMware operations, kind of ops engineering for the VMC, which is VMware Cloud on AWS project. The demo, I'm going to go over how vSAN is implemented on top of the AWS environment within VMC. This is a standard disclaimer. Everybody's seen it before? Okay. So VMC is a standard SDDC, like an on-prem. The only difference is that we're installing it on the hardware, on the iron, on an AWS EC2 instance. And it's a very beefed up server that I don't think they have released yet, so specially built for us. I will show you in the demo which EC2 instance model it is. And it's sold and operated by VMware. So we get the hardware from EMC. They have their own distributions based on availability zones. At this point, we only have Western availability zones in West US, but we're planning to expand in other areas. And it supports containers and virtual machines, like any other on-prem. And it's based on 6.6, vSphere 6.6, which is 6.5 update 1. That includes vSAN 6.6, and we have like a minor update .1 for vSAN 6.6, 6.6.1. And it provides, it offers on-demand capacity and flexible consumption model. So you start with 4 nodes, as I'll show in the next slides. And if you need additional capacity, you can go in and click on an icon to add an additional node. It will take, for adding a host, it takes a few minutes. When you first create the initial SDDC, it takes a couple hours. And then you have a network configuration where you can set up your VPN tunnel. So you have your on-prem connected to the off-prem, in SDDC. And you can set up VC with a new mode called hybrid link mode, which allows you to dynamically move your workload from the on-prem to the SDDC without any changes. The only thing you do is just a little infrastructure work on your end to prepare your endpoint, and you work with our SRE team to connect to the SDDC side, and it's all done via UI. I will show you how that one's done. And VC hybrid, the next thing is that the AWS footprint and availability, that's global. As I mentioned, that we're starting with the Western AZ first, and then we'll grow in other areas. It can have direct access to native AWS services. So if you have an AWS account, we enable you to link your account to the SDDC, so you can have access within the SDDC to your other services within AWS without having to go out of the network and go back in. So minimum cluster, as I mentioned, is 4 nodes, and each node is a new version of EC2. And each node has 2 disk groups. How many of you have seen vSAN? Okay, good. So generally, vSAN is for storage. We use caching tier and use capacity tier. So this environment is all NVMe disks that for both capacity and caching tier. So it's all flash. And we have 8 disks per host. We have 2 disk groups with 4 disks, 1 cache and 3 capacity. And again, as I mentioned, the vCenter hybrid link mode. And we have introduced in 6.6.1 vSAN a logical container for vSAN to provide logical separation of the vSAN storage for the management workload versus your workload as a customer. In earlier versions of the beta, we had some issues where the customers didn't have the permissions to do certain operations, like create a content library or delete their files, or if they upload a file, they want to abort the upload and so on. So we ended up adding this feature or capability in vSAN, which is, I'm not sure if how many of you have seen my book yet? Okay, back there. So I have chapter 21 and 22 about vSAN that explains in details how vSAN is structured and how the extended attributes are for a vSAN object. A vSAN object can be a virtual disk, it can be a namespace, which is a virtual machine directory, can be a swap file, can be a mem file, and so on. That given object has properties, and those properties are based on object store file system. So within this object store file system, we introduced on-disk format, starting with version 1. In vSphere 6.5, which is vSAN 6.5, we introduced version 5 on disk format. For AWS, VMC on AWS, we introduced version 6 that introduced additional extended attribute that enables us to define this container that would appear as a separate data store, but it's actually the same data store with logical separation of your data from the management data. So it enables us to set permissions on the for your accounts for the data store, the logical data store versus the vSAN data store. So when you look here at the permissions, I'm using the vSphere web client, which we announced that is going to be deprecated by the next release. For us in SRE team, we still have access to that because that's some of the operations we need to do through the UI, we do that. But most of our operations are done through APIs and scripts without having to actually need to log into the environment. So I'm not sure if you can see it in the back here. I'm showing the properties of the vSAN data store and selecting the user, which is the cloud admin. And you'll see there is no permission selected at all. If you compare that to the workload data store, which is the logical container, you will see that cloud admin has many permissions that enables them to do the function on that data store. So this is my book. It shipped last month in July 24th. So again, chapter 21, 22. And chapter for other, this covers the whole spectrum of storage, not just the vSAN. I have vVol in the last chapter, 23, and I have NFS and the rest of the stack. So I can answer questions while I'm switching to the environment here. So I'm logged in. Any questions? Okay. So I'm logged in here as my name in an organization called vmc.org. So when you when you purchase the service, you create an organization on Amazon, and this org ID will be associated with your SDDC. So if I want to create an SDDC, I just go here to create SDDC, and you would go through workflow of providing all the information that you want, how many hosts you want, and it's a very seamless, intuitive wizard approach. So let me cancel this here. You end up with this environment. So I have two SDDCs. I'm going to show you the demo on the one on the left-hand side, which is called SRE. It was just created on August 25th. And then the other one, we're using it for our own testing, for testing alerts and alarms, injecting errors and stuff like that. So this is our canary in the mine type environment. So when you first create the SDDC, it doesn't have any firewall rules, which means that it's locked down by default. You have to enable firewall rule to access VC. So if you click on the create SDDC, and the firewall rule is not defined, it will tell you you need to create a firewall rule, and it will give you a choice. You want to create it for VPN, and create a firewall rule to connect directly to a service for VC, for example. So it will take you to an area like this. So if I go here to view details and network, so this is a graphical interface that shows you. On the top is the managed network, and on the bottom is the workload network. And on the other side is your on-prem. So you click on an action, and we'll give you choices. Add firewall rule. But let me show you first what I have created down here. These are the firewall rules that are already created. So at this point, I have no VPN. DNS is defined by default, pointing to Google DNS. But if you have your own DNS, you can change that. If you're going to be setting up a VPN, you may need your DNS to be for your on-prem. And once you set up on-prem, once you set up your VPN, we as SRE will not have access to your environment, but we have a way of doing delegated access that we get temporary tokens to access the environment, enough to troubleshoot and resolve your issues, if you have any. So if you go here to the summary, so I have the snapshot for this data center, and it shows me the workload in one snapshot. If I click here on connection info, this is where it gives you a way to log in. If I click here on the top here, there was a way for me to just click on Open vCenter server. Here it gives you the username, and it gives you the password already there. All you need to do is just copy the password using the copy icon, and then open vCenter, and the username is cloudadmin@vmc.com. Sorry, .local, and you put you put in your password here. So what's the paste in a Mac? Control V or Command? Okay. You can tell I'm not a Mac user. So come on. What is it doing that? So it's logging in using the H5 client, which is the HTML5 client. In the beta, we used to provide both links of the web client and HTML5 client, but since we're deprecating the web client, we're removing it. We removed it from the UI. So after you log in, you will see your familiar admin environment, but using the H5 client, and you would see everything like on-prem. You will see the data stores, you have the two data stores, the vSAN data store and the workload data store. If you create a new virtual machine, you try to put it on the vSAN data store, it will tell you don't have access to this. You get a red dialog while it's loading. I only have 2 minutes. And if you can create your own rule, your own policies, and apply those policies to your objects, your VMs. You cannot touch the management VMs. They are visible there in the display, but you don't have any management access to them. You can do your, you can apply the policies to different objects. You can change policies to apply different policies to existing objects. So after you create the object, you say by default, it is using the vSAN data store default policy, which is RAID 1. If you want to create a RAID 5 policy, you already have 4 nodes, which allows you to do that. If you want to use a RAID 6 policy, you must have 6 nodes or more for RAID 6, because you need FTT equals 2 to fail tolerate. All right. So after you upgrade to additional, okay, I'm out of time. All right, thank you. So